everyone. Good evening. May I invite Ami Federman? Mama, shall we go and hug? Well done. I know how exciting this is for you. You've been waiting a long time to show this movie, right?
Yes, I have. I'm very excited. I'm very nervous. I'm very excited. So thank you for coming.
Have a sip of water. Yeah. I'm just going to start with the, a bit of generic because it's really interesting. How did this idea came to you?
I'm trying to think. I wanted for a long time to work with Holocaust survivors because it's something that I've always been very interested in and it's very important to me. And it was a few years ago that I started to hear more about a lot of conditions of Holocaust survivors and the fact that there are Holocaust survivors in Israel who don't have food and basic things, and just the thought of that really, I couldn't sit with it. I couldn't accept that kind of reality that in Israel Holocaust survivors are actually sitting at home experiencing, hunger or loneliness, so I really wanted to do something to shed light on Holocaust survivors, and I felt that it was sort of my last opportunity. And I've been very drawn to the idea of art and aesthetics, and the meaning of art for people and how therapeutic it is. And also I'm very drawn in art to the idea of darkness and light, of beauty and darkness combined together. And of course the Holocaust is a very complicated, deep topic, so I wanted to try to touch it through something that's very visually aesthetic and very beautiful, and so shows sort of the contrast between what these people have experienced and the choice that they've made to actually be very creative and lead a life that's very full and very full of meaning. And so my hope was to create something that's kind of very beautiful aesthetically and has color and warmth, but at the same time there's a contradiction between what they went through and the choice that they made to do beautiful art or to express themselves through art. And that sort of contradiction is something that I'm very drawn to in life, that paradox or polarity, I guess. And also the meaning of art for me or for so many people is, one of the reasons that something that gives meaning, that gives therapy. So
yeah, I was wondering about that, about how does it meet you, where does it meet you, as an artist yourself?
Many years ago, a friend of mine who was actually a doctor, she told me that she studied evolution, and she said that what was very unique always about the Homo sapiens is that we were the ones who were painting on caves and always trying to be storytellers. So I've always believed that a big part of us as human beings is that we are storytellers. We would sit by the fire, we would tell a story, and so I believe that every artist in a way is a storyteller, if it's through books, if it's through writing, through music, through the medium of cinema. So that's something that I've always felt is very meaningful to me. Expressive artistic expression. And I had a sister who I think this is a big part of it, who was a social, political artist and activist. And she was very ill, and part of her, and my first movie was about my sister. And during her illness, what she would do, she was in isolation, she was in a very difficult situation, but she was very creative. So she would sew, and she actually created like a studio in her isolation room. And that's when I understood how meaningful art is for people. And I also know in my life, in difficult situations, art has always been music, art, poetry. It's always sort of it's like the bread and the flour. There's a man who goes to the market, and the story is that he brings bread and the flour. So the bread is for survival, but the flour is for the soul. So this is for me a big part of my life, or what I'm interested in learning about.
Anyone with questions before, or we're going to continue, but if anyone has a question, please let us know. Yeah?
How did you find the 5 people?
How did you find the 5 people?
Yeah, I worked with a researcher, her name is Kim, and she was able to find, it was really hard, first of all, to find Holocaust survivors who are actually able to talk on camera, who are actually in a state that they, unfortunately, it's really sort of a last opportunity, a very rare opportunity. And she found the 4 first artists that you saw. And the last one, Ruti, it was really a last moment thing. It's really interesting because when you go on make a movie, especially with documentary, it's very much like going on a trip. You have an idea, but the journey sort of reveals itself to you, and
It takes you on a journey.
it took me on a journey, and they say the path is smart or wiser than the person who walks on it or treads the path. So at the end of the path, all of a sudden, I wanted to do an art exhibit to connect with it, and this art exhibit said there's this woman, Ruti, who, and at first I didn't even interview her because I felt I had enough footage. And then I said, let's give it a try, and the footage came back, and her story was so powerful to me. And also for me, what was really important is, and one of the most powerful things that happened to me is that when I thanked her for taking part in the movie, she actually said that she's so happy that she took part in it, because before doing this interview, she had never told her children what had happened to her in the Holocaust. And she decided that if she can talk to the camera, then she can sit her children down. Her children are grown up, she has grandchildren, they have her own children, and she sat with them and she told them for the first time what had happened to her. So it was a healing process for her. And I was so grateful that I was able to document her story, that she was able to say it, and that she was able to tell her children afterwards. So sometimes the journey takes you on such interesting paths.
Anyone? Okay, I mean, Saadia is actually, he let you in his house. I mean, it wasn't only him and his art, it was his wife, it was his, his dinner. How did that happen? Because with all the rest, it was just about, it was them and the art. It wasn't something more personal. With him, it was something more personal.
I think I had more footage, some of them. I did get to meet their families, and especially the partners. Not all of it I was able to use. They're all just such incredible people. I feel so honored that they were willing to share their story with me. And it's not only their story, it's just to meet these people, to sit with them in their house. Tommy has this wonderful wife. She made the best cookies for us. We sat, we talked. People let you into their world when they share this kind of story and their trauma. So, Saada is just, I am so honored to get to meet someone like that. He's magical to me, because to me what is powerful about the story is that although it's incredibly dark and they went through something so difficult, they're not victims. They're not victimized by what they went through. They're not what happened to them. They're the choice to continue, to find meaning in life, to create art out of it. And all of them each one of them is an incredible person. Tommy, it doesn't come up in the footage because there was so much of each one of them. Tommy is someone who for 30 years works with special youth. Saadi, all of these people are people who are contributing to society, who are not victimized by everything they went through. They have every right to feel sorry for themselves, to not want to get out of bed, to not want to participate in life. And on the contrary, these are people who are so full of life, so engaged in life. And that's really the inspiration for me.
Saadi always, when he talked about his art, he said that there's this moment of revelation for him. That's what he said, that all of a sudden, he puts his soul, when he puts his soul in it, there's a moment of revelation. And I was wondering whether you had a moment of revelation in this movie, and while making it, and if so, what was it?
Wow, interesting question. It's very hard when you have an idea and you want something. It's almost like, this is a very philosophical idea, but they say that the infinite or the divine or whatever you call that energy wanted to give something to the human soul. That's why we're here, because and I think that the part of us that wants to create is actually that tiny part of us that is connected to that, that wants to create something from within us. So when you have in you a spark and you want to write a book or you want to make a movie, there is so much doubt and so much fear. But ultimately, the experience of all of a sudden it starts coming to life. All of a sudden you start meeting these people, they start telling you their story. All of a sudden the puzzles start to fit together. It's such a powerful experience. And I don't know if there was one moment, but I think every time something came back, the footage came back, and I saw it, and then I met another person, and I discovered these people, and their stories started to come along the way. It was very magical to me, or meaningful to me, I would say. So I can't say it was one moment, but it's sort of a journey that revealed itself to me.
This movie comes in a time, you made it before the Shomer Chomot and all this, but it comes in a time when anti-Semitism now it's on the rise, and people, still they talk a lot of there's a lot of misconception and false facts about the Holocaust and about what's going on. And now watching this movie, how does it make you feel?
To me, I think that Holocaust survivors should be remembered every day. It's not just once a year. People, just once a year we'll give them a day, we'll remember them. I think these people need to be remembered. These stories are important. They should not be isolated and left alone. And these are our heroes. I mean, our culture sort of, in many ways, our culture sort of glorifies a lot of things that aren't very meaningful, whereas these people who've survived so much and have chosen to still take part in life, there are heroes. There are people who, to me, are really interesting and people that I want to listen to and I want to learn from them. So I really feel that Holocaust survivors deserve, to be heard, and that these stories are important. They need to be given a voice, and obviously in the context of what's happening today, I mean, it's a very difficult time. I saw someone the other day wearing a Star of David, and I was just saying to a friend, it's such a beautiful symbol and I want to wear it, but there is that part of me that says, I'm a little bit scared actually I'm not 100% comfortable, so, and that really worries me deeply, that I even have to think about that, because I believe that human rights is for everyone. If you're thinking about Black Lives Matter or Asian life, you should feel the same way about Jewish people. Everyone should feel safe, regardless of their sexual orientation or their spiritual, whatever it is. So it is worrying times, and I think it is important to remember these stories, and it is important for people. I grew up reading and learning about the Holocaust from my culture, but a lot of people are misinformed. They don't know, they don't hear these stories. So it's important that everyone gets to know this about our history. And to me also, the Holocaust, it's not only about the Jewish history, it's humanity. It's what happened to us as human beings, for all of us. So I do believe it's important.
And the title of the movie, Black Flowers. I know that it mentioned, it's Ruti's, I think, right? It's Ruti's painting, but what does it mean to you?
To me, it's really about her inability, her trying to escape her subconscious, or us trying to escape our truth. I'll do anything that takes me away from my truth, but the truth will always come back to you. And to me, the idea of black flowers, it sounds a bit dark, but to me, it's actually the duality of life. Life to me, and this is very obvious in the film, it's always incredibly beautiful and dark at the same time. It's always, I'm very drawn to art that's like black humor. I like food that's sweet and sour. That's what I'm hoping to create, something that it's dark, but at the same time, there's beautiful aesthetic in it. And if you listen to really great music that was written, a lot of great songs, Take a Walk on the Wild Side, it sounds great, but really he's talking about something about
a very sad story.
Yeah, and so that idea in art, which we do that a lot, we take something, we try to see that polarity, that connection between darkness and light. And really, I also believe in many ways that a lot of people say that the darkness is a reflection of the light, so you can't have one without the other. It's sort of polarities, it's the yin and the yang. And in art, I think we look for that. We look for the darkness and the beauty and the aesthetic and that sort of tension between evil and good, and they're always together. So that's something I'm interested and drawn to.
I think just before we finish, what do you think the survivors would like the audience to take from this movie? Have you discussed this with them?
I've talked to them about tonight, and they're all very excited, and I share with them, and I'm going to send them the photos to show that people came. I think they're very excited. They're very, it's one moment where they share the story, and then it's another completely different experience to have it screened in London and to people hear their story. I think I can't speak on their behalf. I can't take that role because it's too grand a role, but I think that they would want their stories to be heard, and they would want I think also for people to sort of be connected to life and choose to always, regardless of the circumstance, regardless if these people who have suffered tremendously can stay connected to life and continue to with life and find meaning in life, then I don't think anyone has really the right to dwell or to. It's okay. I'm not about repressing, but really it's about inspiration, about being part of life, giving back to society. These are all people who are doing a lot for others and taking part in the world and not just being victimized by something that was really horrible. So I think this is, to me, something that I believe that they would want to say to the world. They're not just victims, they're survivors, they're flourished, they've done something incredible with their lives, and hopefully to give inspiration to others to always keep being meaningful, to keep being of service of others or doing something meaningful, and finding the beauty and the joy even in the small things in life, I think.
Well, this has been very inspirational, and I hope more and more people will be exposed to the stories because it's extremely important. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you so much.
Nice.